What's up, my people? It's not Lowe's Mall. We're just using my my father's laptop, so that's the name that you see down there. Once again, this is our second episode of the Ways with the Maze, and we want to thank all of our people that signed in last month. Um, we're gonna go over the topic that we're gonna have for today. And I can actually express a little bit of that now. As you see, there's absentee here, and that's the wife. But we communicated that. So, and our word for today is communication, the roles that it play in your relationship. What are you expecting out of the communication? Um, how we could alter. Now I'm getting the feedback. Oh, okay. Because you did that. So, we just want to thank you guys for joining us once again, giving glory and thanks to our Lord Jesus Christ. We just coming from church. We always want to be reminded of His goodness.
Yeah.
And she's here, without a doubt. So I told him I just spoke about you not being here, but it was communicated that you're not going to be able to be here. And I would have been here much earlier, but nevertheless, you want to say something before we?
I'm just glad to be back.
I like it.
I'm glad to be back. So I see that we got a viewer on here, and I'm just grateful to be able to actually communicate today. And so welcome back. We are really excited to share with you all what we prepared for today. So I don't know about you, but I feel led. I'm going to start by just saying, Lord, have your way in this conversation. And I hear that communication is like really hard. I hear that.
He don't understand me. She talk too much. A lot of things that, and if you're not transparent, one of the biggest things we do, like even though we have time, right? There's time when we speak about something or we don't want to speak about something or something's on our chest, and we both need our time to decipher how we're going to come to one another and speak to one another, right?
So that brings us to our first question, like, how do we communicate, you and I?
What is it? A scale? Is it
scale?
No scales. That's so hard. How do we communicate?
Like, what does our like communication look like right now?
Growing, still growing. First, before you start, babe. So early on this week, right? I've been posting things about our show today, communication, certain type of I mentioned, are you talking or are you communicating, right? Because in communication, there's a comprehension that needs to go on, right? Somebody needs to understand what you're saying. You need to deliver it a certain way. And the wife, we got 2 kids, you guys know that, but she mentioned how we support or reward our young son for knowing like bee and dog and door, and he's in the beginning stages of his communications. But when we get older and we start to converse with one another, if we don't give each other that same generosity or that same respect, that patience, and when adults try to communicate with one another.
Yeah, so I like the description or like the story I was saying is like we get excited when children are, first of all, we want them to talk. We want them to talk because we don't understand every moan and every groan. And sometimes with Dakota, it's like, and we're like, we don't know what that means. Like, can you please tell me what's going on? And then we somewhere where our voice got stifled and we don't take the same initiative to force a conversation and actually communicate, because somewhere we were told at some point in our lives, like, maybe don't talk or don't say it this way. And so we hesitate to communicate And so today we're hoping that, our goal is that there's more courageous conversations after this, and that people actually take initiative in communicating with one another and not just talking, right? But really listening to one another.
That's good.
So,
That's good. So I want to highlight we have our priority shirts on, right? Priority sweaters. It's a brand that was I would say probably birthed out of the pandemic, but even a little bit before that, right? So our priority in our relationship is God. So one way we help communicate is going to God first, right? Being led to see what we should speak on, or if prayer itself can just speak to our spirit. That communication is what's key. So I just want to thank you. We'll be doing this every episode. We want to thank Iran and my cousin Chris Smith, who also has a brand. We're gonna put her information up. It's Shop Suit LL Shop Sweet LLH on Instagram, and if you guys just support one another, right? And that one word says so much, right? You don't have to give somebody a book, right? In communication, you got to speak what your main goal, and you let that person take time to receive it and then maybe rebuttal. Yeah, it's a two-way street.
And it talks about, like, this is about what is your priority, right? And so if your priority is to win souls for Christ, then everything you do, right, should line up with that. If your priority is to have a successful family, then everything you should do should line up to that. So when you're communicating, if your priority is to prefer one another, right, and allow each person to grow in the process, then you will have success. And it does. And let me actually highlight this. This is not just for marriages, right? Like, this is for all types of relationships.
You just don't start talking when you get married.
No,
there's a lifetime of conversations had before you meet the one you're gonna marry, and it don't even have to be your
It could
spouse.
be a parent. This could be for people who need to build better communication with their parent, with their boss, with a friend. So, I mean, everything that we discussed today, I want you to see yourself using some of these strategies to be a better communicator. So let's dig into some stuff. Like, what does communication look like right now, like with us as we were venturing? Like, what do we do that you feel like is communication?
Just like you said about our son, right? That we have a baby cries if they're tired, hungry, in pain, or needs changing. So it's only 4 things that we have to figure out what their moans and groans about. So our communication, I take time to just try to figure out what Michelle is trying to communicate sometimes. And I asked her to, before you talk, let me know what role I have to play. Am I you just had a long day at work and you come to vent? That means my ears is open and I don't got to say a word. You just want to vent. Or am I the one who should listen attentively and be ready to give you advice on what I'm hearing?
And so I start my conversations like, I'm just venting, right? Or I start the conversation, I need your advice, right? And that allows you to know where I'm coming from and what I want out of the conversation.
Yes, and also my father told me I've learned today that I use one of my gifts is speaking in analogies to understand and help people understand. So my father told me, what do you want to say to a person? What don't you want to say to the person? What do you want that person to say to you? How are you expecting that person to reply? So when you go into this deep rooted conversation, you're prepared for everything that may happen. You're not being realistic if you go and say, I'm going to say this, and she going to say yes, and that's going to be it.
Yep.
It's not realistic. It's not how it's going to happen.
Yeah. And And so that brings me to like some of the things that I want to say. Like, I think one of the things that we do is we force ourselves to over communicate. And I think the over communication portion is just so that um, we can kind of like decide if that's something that needs to be further communicated, or do I just already know? And I think that's the role that I play. It's like I tell you pretty much everything. And that gives him a space to say, look, I don't need to hear that, right? But at least he can't say you didn't tell me.
Yeah. Everything, right? Overload. So there's a time when I cancel out, and my facial expressions say I'm no longer in this conversation. If you look at me, you can tell, but I'm still listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be something that she'll bring it up again, and we mentioned how would we talk to when we were growing up, you know,
Yeah.
my mother-in-law, her mother, they're similar. She'll come home and she'll start talking, and she'll get in a conversation on a cell phone, and they're such boss women, right? At their jobs, they control things. So I've told Michelle, when you come home, you gotta like lay down your boss bags, right? And let me lead the home sometimes. So
Yeah.
or all the time with what's the word I'm looking for? Come on, help me with my communication. Come on, help me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
With my submitting, with submitting to
Yes.
her and her ideas. It's not just what I say goes.
So like when I mentioned the phrase courageous conversations, like sometimes you can talk about like the things that are the easiest for you to talk about. And because it helps you. And we talked about this the other day, like sometimes you do need to have simple conversations that are not always serious, because then when it's time to have a serious conversation, you understand the body language, you understand like where someone's coming from. So the simple conversations are just as great, but communication, we need to delve into some courageous, serious conversation sometimes. And it's the things that we're not 100% comfortable talking about.
What don't you want to talk about?
Yeah, let's talk about what's not being talked about.
I could say one thing, that no matter how much I may not want to talk about something, and I hold it after I talk about it, I feel much better. Mm-hmm. Right? So I made another post, right, this week, saying what you hold on your chest is doing more damage to your heart. Like the weight you hold on your chest is doing more damage to the heart, because whatever you don't let out will eventually and have potential to explode under pressure.
Yeah. And I think we learned the hard way in the beginning of our relationship, saying, oh, I don't tell you things because, right? And not realizing
I didn't feel like you needed to know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. But I think it's more so like I didn't tell you because I was concerned about like if I was going to hurt you, or I didn't tell you because I told you last time and I felt like you didn't hear me or you didn't listen to what I was saying. So I'm not going to say it no more, or you didn't receive it, right? Not realizing that the conversation does need to happen, right? And it doesn't mean that I shy away from it. It just means more of what is again the purpose and the goal of this conversation. Like really, what am I trying to get out of it? So what I love to talk about, and you mentioned this already, is you said like the how we were raised to communicate. And there's nothing wrong with how you were raised, right? But just what you learn. I learned, from my household that, it's okay to voice your opinion, but you only can voice your opinion with each other, people who are your peers that are your same age, but not always okay to voice your opinion when it's an adult, right? And so when it comes to elders, or people who are older than you, like you are not allowed to pretty much have an opinion. Like whatever they say goes, right? And so what role that played now in my communication with just people in general, right? Like I'm a boss, yes, but there are people who I work with who are older than me. And so my stance sometimes is like, I can't be telling them what to do. My mother told me to honor my elders, right? But I'm their boss. So then there's a part of me that has to almost dishonor what I learned in my household so that I can lead and correct elders, which I didn't realize was something that I actually would, that even as kids can teach us something, right? And so trying to undo that of the way I learned how to communicate and saying and speaking to adults in a way that like I'm honoring you, but I also have to let you know X, Y, and Z.
That's a good trait to carry into a conversation. I'm gonna ask you. I know I get it confused. I want to say Saul. Saul's the good guy, right? Paul the good guy. Paul. I knew it. I knew it. So Paul, in the book of and Paul, he had to become who he was talking to, right? So with kids, you see most of you get down and you talk baby talk, because it's like that's what they could relate to. With women or men, we look at things differently, and I like to simplify things. So I think what I say is very simple, but she may not get it that way.
No, I don't always think that, y'all. I don't.
So I encourage and urge people to have the face-to-face, because if you receive a text from me, it may have came off saying something like, I like purple dogs on ice cream, when all I wanted to say is, I'm outside shoveling ice. Like it did, but I spoke it into my phone and I didn't proofread. So thinking before you speak is proofreading your thoughts in conversation.
I think that's something that people could learn. I think also when you want to have a conversation, one of the things that you could do is also prepare for the conversation, right? And so when you communicate, you don't want to come to a conversation like on 1,000, right? Sometimes you do need to pause. Sometimes you Selah, right? In the Bible, it says Selah, right? Sometimes you don't need to say anything at all, and you need to stop and process. And Dakari and I recently were, having a very, very difficult conversation. And I took a moment to like not say anything, right? And I just said, I'm gonna process what I'm gonna say. And I also learned and talking about like keys to communicating, right? That I need to pray before I speak, because praying helps me remember like that we are on the same team as we said last week. Praying also allows me to allow God to speak to me about what I need to say so that I'm not acting in the flesh. Because we know that, if you act of the flesh, it is equal to death, right? And I don't want our relationship to equal death. So I pray so that I'm being led by the Spirit.
One of the hardest things, and I want to get back to your question, is how we was raised. We was raised to communicate. I wasn't. I was seen and not be heard. Like Michelle said, it became a time. I remember I was 14, and I was trying to have this conversation with my mother, and I was but mommy. I was a but mommy boy, right? So, but mommy, I understand what you're saying, but let me. And my father disagreed completely. I still might have marks on the back of my neck from me instantly getting thrown in my room and being on punishment for back talking. But it was me trying to evolve into this young man and have an adult conversation. So how that affected me to this day would probably lead me to say, I'm gonna speak what I want to say, and it may not come out as nicely as it should, and not wanting to hurt one another. Sometimes I just be like, Michelle, can I be frank? Because it's only one way I gotta say this, and I just gotta say it the way I want to say it. but don't get offended, right? So saying that helps me communicate instead of trying to sugarcoat and oh well, this and then it's so much confusion after that.
Yeah. So, um, let's talk about some things that you figure are like key points to communication that you feel like you've learned over this past few years, or even just in your general like life. What are some key things that you want people to like take away
Take away from communication.
about like communicating?
I guess I already said it. Well, these if you acknowledge who you're talking to, right? Know that
Mm-hmm.
person, sympathize with that person. Um, you may they may have went through something, right? They may be going through something currently right now. So it's good for you to um, I got a perfect saying. It says nobody cares about what you know until they know how much you care.
Mm-hmm.
So um, take the time to get to know somebody. Like just don't. It's a two-way street, right? So you got to work in your delivery.
Yes, I agree with that.
And how the person receives it. You got to give time, go back and forth as well, because you don't want to. My biggest thing is I want to say something, and then I used to like cut you off,
Mm-hmm.
and then if I cut her off,
And it was going down. Don't cut me off.
So if you really got to have a real deep conversation, get a pen and a pad so you don't miss the notes. Like you got a question about something, you write it down.
Yeah, that brings up a key takeaway is like don't listen to respond, like listen to truly try to understand.
Yes.
And that used to be one of my things. I already knew what I wanted to say, and I'm spending half of the time like, as soon as he finished talking, I'm gonna say this, right? But I didn't really listen to what you said, and then I also didn't listen to your heart, right? And so sometimes don't assume, right? That's something that I would also say. Like, don't assume you already know like what that person means. That usually sets people off. Like if you go right in the conversation and like assume, well, you don't care. Like that's an assumption, right? And so I'd rather you kind of come in the conversation like knowing that I might need to ask more questions to get better understanding. Like, can you tell me like what's going on and why this happened? And is there something that I could have done differently? Or what do you mean by that? Like, if I don't understand something, rather than assuming like bad intentions, like assuming the good intention of it all. And I mean, I coined that from Pastor, but don't always assume more for good intentions versus bad.
I want to touch on the fact that our last episode was about teamwork and how we work as a team. And I was just gotta say it, on the basketball court, there's non-verbal communication, there's verbal communication. And as long as you know that, I would say build your trust in your partner. If you are married or together in a relationship, to reassure that what is being said is not meant to hurt the other person. Um, I'm gonna just say, black, women be like, "Don't tell me to calm down," but sometimes in a conversation, you need to calm down.
Don't tell me to calm down.
Don't. Yeah, see. So and don't. What that says is, don't speak at me. Speak to me.
Try to understand like what is meant by what is being said. And so like I want to say like continue to keep having conversation, right?
You get better at it.
You get better,
you gotta keep
and
going.
like you push through. Like you gotta push through. The conversations are not gonna always be the best conversations, and don't always assume that when the conversation is over that you have come to some kind of resolution, right? Sometimes you're not going to end agreeing, right? But you end knowing like we can come back and we need to take a break, or I need to process what's been said. And when I was saying that earlier about like the communication portion and being it not being like over, right? Like it just means like
You just got something off your
we
chest.
we might have to think of a next step and we need to come back. In our last conversation, like we didn't finish it. Like we're still processing our next step, right? And it's okay like to accept the non-closure of the conversation.
So I was gonna ask you, because you at that point don't get a closure, and you said it doesn't mean that it's over. Um, just don't be stuck in your ways. Like, don't. Oh, we gotta come. We gotta talk about it again. But I'm already set. I got my mind made up.
Mm-hmm.
A great way to look at situations are sometimes taking yourself out of the situation, because we can get it real personal. We could take offense to certain things, and if you just step back and look at two strangers in the same in the same conversation without you having your own personal insight on it, then that also can help you open your vision, your field of view, right? In communication, sometimes you get tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
But if you step back, it gives you a broader picture.
And some things that are like the most difficult topics, right? And so for us, like one of the most difficult topics usually are around sex, right? They're usually around um, disappointment, like when we're disappointing one another. They're usually around um, an expectation that I had, right, and that you didn't meet, and now I'm trying to figure out a way to say like you didn't meet my expectation, and so be honest and upfront about those things, even though they may not necessarily be they're usually taboo conversations, right, and things that people stray away from talking about, right, and so you want to have conversations with people who you have relationships with that are also deeper, and dig deeper, like where did that come from, like why is this happening, and so it's important that you tell, and one of our topic questions today is like, if you leave something out, is it a lie, right? And so we talked about like, if you just omit something, if you don't tell all the parts of it, is it a lie?
Hmm. Uh, I would say it comes from the mindset of the person omitting, um, and people lie sometimes to protect. They think or they know that the other person may not be ready,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of stunting their growth, like she said, have the difficult communication. Be honest. Give it a little buffer in the beginning. Like, look, no disrespect, or
How about I love you?
I love you.
I
I
love
love you to
you.
start. I love you to start. And we're talking about like the power of life is in and death is in the tongue, right? So don't talk yourself out of a conversation, or don't talk yourself out of a situation with negativity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, build your own self up. Look at
Yeah.
yourself in the mirror. Speak positivity into your life.
And
Um,
speak positivity into one another, right? And
yeah.
so like even if it's something that someone's done wrong, you can't keep talking about the thing they did wrong, right?
Mhm.
You have to like say, all right, cool, like this is what you did. Now we can talk about like what are our next steps and like how can we move forward, right? And being solution oriented, because most times people are already embarrassed. They already want to change what they did and wish they didn't do it, right? Because now they know they didn't meet your expectation. You can't keep beating a dead horse, right? You gotta move forward, and you gotta make sure that you're reaching a solution, and you're centered in knowing that we're trying to progress forward. We're not trying to move back. And I think right now marriages, right? It's all about communicating, and you do these vows, right?
Mhm.
Like you vow for better or for worse, right? Well, you got to communicate for better or for worse, right? And there shouldn't be, where this marriage is over, because no, just keep building at your relationship brick by brick, brick by brick.
In every aspect.
Yeah,
Finances, one of the leading cause of divorce. It's
yeah,
because people don't talk about their money.
they
Because people
don't.
don't
We don't even,
trust that the other person will handle the money correctly, or
yeah, money is a good topic. You
money
got to talk about that. You got to talk about money. You got to talk about how you're going to spend it. It's important. And I know that we had a comment and a question. And so I know we talked about love language last week. And so the question is, how do we incorporate that into communication? I definitely think for me, if you know the love language is words of affirmation, right? Then you start by uh, affirming that person. You start by saying, you know, you've been doing a wonderful job as a husband, and you always recognize when I need something and you do it, right? But here's something that I want to lean into. What I would say also, like, being cautious. Like, if someone's mad, don't just do an act of service because it's their love language, right? So you got to consider, like, what the love language is, or the act of service can lead to the conversation, right? And so I'm going to now do something. It can break the ice. It can create an opportunity for, like, that person to come down from their being on a 10 and know, like, I still love you. And you say this to me all the time. I don't know if you guys watched Survivor's Remorse before, but Dakari loves bringing up this couple from Survivor's Remorse. And it's like, just because we had an argument doesn't mean we have to stay mad, right? Like, just because we didn't have the best conversation, or we didn't come to an agreement, doesn't mean we have to stay mad. And he loves the couple in this show, because it's like they go from argument to, like, you want something to eat? What you making, right? Like, and so I think that's what he, hearing that as his expectation, right, allow me to understand what he was looking for. And then I was able to process what that meant and what that looked like, and actually watch Survivor's Remorse, and I studied that relationship to see, like, it actually is okay to maybe be upset with one another, but still demonstrate love and still demonstrate the love language that they relate to the most.
So I'm gonna speak on. I know we our time is getting over.
It's over.
But I knew this topic would have to be more than just the 30 minutes. But we're gonna keep it very close to it. Love language, right? It's preparing yourself, right? It's understanding what you're walking into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your first day at work, your first day of school, you got orientation, right? And you got I'm a firefighter. You got rules and regs to abide by. So you know what you're stepping into. If you have something negative to say, and Michelle could attest to this, there's techniques. Like this, it's called the sandwich technique, right? So if you got something negative to say, you sandwich it with a positive on top, throw in the negative, and then another positive on the bottom. So the person,
and let's not say negative, right? Because I think that's the
word itself.
That's the word itself makes it sound like,
say, not nice.
No, but usually it's like a growth, right? It's an area you can grow.
An area of growth.
So or opportunity for a change, right? And so it's like, I love the way that you buy me things, and this is real, y'all. So I'm about to tell you what it is. But I love the way you buy me things all year round. I appreciate that, right? But I would also love that you actually bought me something on Christmas, right? Like, just saying. And and I will continue to purchase things for you as well. But I'm just as real, y'all. I'm just saying. But I think that's how you would word it. He's looking away.
Yes, that's the perfect example. That's the perfect example of sandwiching a comment. Yeah, I like that.
He's taking it in, y'all. He's taking it in.
Taking it in.
Go ahead, throw one at me. Throw one at me. Try it. Test it out. Try to test out the sandwich. Come on.
I got one better than the sandwich. It's only 2 words. Thank you. It works wonders. I guarantee you, if you're feeling unappreciated, or you're feeling disappointed, or you're down and out, and your spouse or somebody just says, "Thank you," you be like, "What?"
Or you're right. Ladies,
or you're right.
Ladies, say you're right,
Oh,
okay? He just wants you to say you're right. And then you don't actually have to believe he's right. I'm just saying, you just say you're right. And it just goes a long way. He's like, you never say I'm right. And then I'm like, when I say it, he's like, I don't know what else to say. The conversation's over.
It'd be black and white, and she finds gray.
Usually,
I'm like,
9 times out of 10.
What do you? What?
It's my gift. It's my gift. The Lord blessed me with that.
With gray?
With gray, with seeing like in between the lines. I can't. The Lord blessed me with
that. So if there's any questions, I feel like there's so much more we can get into. But if you leave comments down, if you don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That's like the go-to model for anybody starting this social media exploration.
Yeah, I would definitely say that if there's something that you have to, that you, after watching this, right? Like if there's a comment that you want to leave, although the live is over, leave the comment. If there's a question that you have, like that you, even if it's like, not about this topic today, leave it in the chat and we'll address it like next week. If you feel like there's a next month, sorry. We're not doing this every week, y'all. I'm praying.
Even though I feel like
we're not doing
much more to do. A
but
month killed me waiting for this.
I know, but
maybe every 2 weeks. If we get your response, we'll do it every 2 weeks.
At the end of the day, we want you to really comment. We want you to let us know what other topics you would love for us to possibly address. And remember, priority shirts. Please support if you haven't done so, and make God your priority. He is the way and the only way, and it is the way we got here where we are. And so we love you, and we thank you for not those who are on now, but even for those who are going to watch this afterwards. So yeah.
And possibly, because you said that, possibly our next episode and show topic would be praying for one another. The powers and the power that it does. And
we're going to do it. We're going to pray out.
So that might be the next episode. Father God, we thank you that you have blessed us with a vision and a word to fall upon any ears or any eyes that have seen and heard this episode, last month episode, and episodes to come. We thank you for allowing us to give them more of what we've experienced through you, what you have shown us, Lord, what you have graciously blessed us with. And we pray that everything that we do brings you glory, brings restoration and rest and just powerful energy towards anybody out there who needs it.
And Father, we actually hope that someone is going to watch this and be blessed, that someone's going to watch this and communicate better than they started communicating before they watched this, that it opens their ears and their eyes to be able to receive not only from you, but for the person that they're going to encounter, whether it's their boss, their friend, a family member, a spouse, father, or even their children. Like, communication is going to dynamically shift and change, and we're going to be more open and more comfortable with having courageous conversations, and we're going to trust you to help us through those conversations. So lives will be changed, and we trust that it's going to happen. And it's going to happen because you did it for us. And so we thank you for every person who was on here. And we expect blessings after blessing after blessing, because we learn to not just talk, but communicate.
Ways with the maze. That's our fly logo.
I don't know.
Look at that logo. Oh, we gotta shout out logo.
Shout out to Dominique Middleton for the logo.
I guess search her on Facebook or something. I don't know her Instagram by heart. We picked out music too. We got music, but we're gonna work on that, getting it tuned in.
We're still live.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
It's like
we know.
We know.
We're just still chatting it up. Maybe somebody
After-
wants to ask a question, you know.
Afterthoughts.
Be like, oh, they really silly afterwards. No, for real. Like, this is a really rich topic. It's like there's still so much more that we could probably talk about. Thank you, Santi. We appreciate you. She was so excited that she told me all day today, like, I can't wait till 3:30. Like, we love you, Santi. And thank you for our mugs, our Contigo cups.
Travel mugs, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta keep the sanctuary clean. No spillage.
Yeah.
And just that, like, they're another couple, like her and Lee. There's another church member who we grow from. Oh, I don't feel like I said, like there's no better, right? We're just sharing.
Yeah.
And if what we share can help you, well, God get the glory, right? You can learn from everybody.
We can learn from
relationships have different things they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a marriage group chat. I'm in like a Black Fathers chat on Facebook, and my thoughts be different from everybody else. But I'm just going to share what I feel like it is, because we got to come against what we grew up with, like generational means of communication or
those generational curses.
I didn't even want to use the C word.
Yeah, but it's in the Bible.
Huh? And you can use it. All right, we out of here.
This is killing me.
Yeah, we out.
Yeah. All right. Ways with the Maze. Check us out on our Instagram at the Ways with the Maze. And you can check us out on our own individual pages. We look forward to hearing from you. Peace.
Yes. Hit us up.